folks, and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Jenny, and I'm joined from Hong Kong by my co-host and sister Heather. Say hello, dude.
Ajax.
Today we are discussing the 1985 feature-length Christmas special, To Hull and Back. So, grab a Tia Maria and Lucozade and let's get started.
So, it's Christmas 1985 and this episode aired on the BBC at 7:30pm on Wednesday, December 25th, Christmas Day. This would be the first ever feature-length episode to be created and the first to air on Christmas Day. Viewing figures were all the way up to 16.9 million, which is the highest we've had for a Christmas special so far. The Christmas number one song for 1985 was Merry Christmas, Everyone by Shaking Stevens. The number one movie at the UK box office was Santa Claus the Movie, starring Dudley Moore. And the overall top grossing movie for 1985 was Back to the Future. Da, 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 da. There you go. That's for all the Back to the Future fans out there. Oh, and by this Christmas, my parents were expecting me. Jenny would have been enjoying her second Christmas as a baby.
Yay, I was a baby.
You still are.
Well, he still is. He was black. So from looking back at some of the TV archives around this time, it looks like the BBC had been airing reruns of Only Fools and Horses Series 4 in December, which likely got everyone in the mood for this feature-length special. So on Christmas Day, it aired after the sitcom Heidi High and was followed by the Two Ronnies. So nice lineup of popular comedies here, all airing back-to-back on Christmas Day. The Trotters were actually featured on the cover of the Radio Times this year, featuring a special Christmas-themed photo shoot with Albert as Father Christmas. There was also a 3-minute appearance by David Jason on the BBC's Breakfast Time on Christmas Eve, both of which could have added momentum to these record-breaking Christmas viewing figures. And since this episode promises to be our longest yet, we will save most of the general 1985 news events for the series overview. But just one here for Christmas. So Christmas 1985 notably brought the launch of charitable organisation Comic Relief.
Comic Relief or something.
Which many will know Only Fools and Horses will collaborate with in the future, so it's pretty topical. So here are a few interesting episode facts. So due to the success of a feature-length episode of Just Good Friends, which aired at Christmas 1984, produced by John Sullivan and Ray Butt, Sullivan pushed to do the same with Only Fools and Horses. This setup had been the same for Just Good Friends, extended story, no laugh track, and made on film, and it had earned impressive viewing figures in a prime spot on Christmas Day. To Hull and Back was actually commissioned by the BBC all the way back in April 1985, but Ray Butt noted that the BBC rejected their original budget request because it was too high, £850,000 to be exact. It was basically not going to happen until Ray Butt happened to save the day again by a chance meeting with a gentleman named Michael Grade whilst in Switzerland at a TV festival. Luckily for him, Grade had just been hired by the BBC and was able to add £250,000 to the budget for To Hull and Back to actually get made. Sullivan said that he employed a different writing style for this episode. Without the need to constantly gain laughter from the audience, he felt he didn't need to write as many gags and was excited to be able to focus on scenes outside of the Nag's Head and the flat. It took 6 weeks to film To Hull and Back. Filming took place between June 2nd and July 25th, 1985, and Ray Butt returned to his directing role for this episode. Tony Dow, who was formerly the assistant floor manager, was now the production manager, and together with Sue Longstaff, he managed all of the location work. Dow actually directed all of the scenes shot in Amsterdam while Butt was supervising the filming in Hull. The entire production was in fact relocated to Hull to shoot this episode. The flat and the Nag's Head were actually all rebuilt from the parts driven up from London. The other sets required, such as Boise's car showroom and Van Cleef's office, were built on site. They used a large former typewriters factory as a studio and production base. More on locations as we go through the episode breakdown. A lot of this episode was actually shot at sea on an old 90-foot boat along the Yorkshire coast. Many of the crew really did suffer from seasickness, and also David Jason. Although Ray Butt soon found out that he was faking it, and he had one of the makeup girls make him look really ill to worry the crew. Such a real-life prankster. And finally, John Sullivan had initially been quite nervous about this airing because it was competing with Minder over on the ITV. It seems this might have been a bit of a publicity stunt and a gamble by Michael Gray to put these two shows on at the same time, and there was apparently a lot of press about it. In the end, Only Fools and Horses actually beat Minder in the ratings by several million viewers. The papers even had interviews with David Jason and Minder star George Cole, where they were predicting family disagreements and joking about why they might win. As we know, in the end, it did pay off for the BBC. This was known as the Christmas, where Only Fools and Horses solidified its position as part of the British Christmas experience. And shall we move on to our rankings, dude?
Okay, sure. So each week we reveal and compare our rankings for the episodes, and prior to recording the entire podcast, we independently ranked all 64 episodes. So if you didn't already know that, you're not one of our regular punters, and we would love for you to become one. So please subscribe to the podcast. We release a new episode every Saturday. So, dude, do you want to guess what my ranking is for this episode, or guess where you think it is in the scale?
All right, I'm going to guess that yours is in the top 10.
Correct. Any ideas where?
How about, I know you've had number 5 already. Number 6?
Good guess, but no. My ranking for this episode is number 4.
Oh, wow. 4. One above healthy competition for you. It's in your top 5.
It's in my top 5. So let me try and guess what your ranking is for this episode. I think you are also in the top 10 for this episode.
That's correct.
And I think yours is 7.
Close, but actually mine is number 5. This is my number 5.
So close. Wow, this has got to be one of the closest that we've ever been on a ranking since we got like one of the I think in series 1 we had one ranking the same.
Well, actually, it's the closest
50s.
We've had so far has actually been, we've had matches in the lows. We had the same ranking for Go West Young Man, but our closest high ranking so far has been Friday the 14th. So this is our actual top ranking that's closest. So you're 4 and I'm 5.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the reason for this, for all of our viewers, Jenny and I, we did watch this episode a lot when we were younger. And I think that we're able to guess that it's in the top 10 for both of us because we both loved this episode so much growing up. And we quote from it all the time. So, I mean, what is it for you, dude, that makes this episode a top one?
This episode, I remember getting it on VHS because we'd never seen it again. This is what we say every time. But we went into Woolworths and it was on the shelf and little VHS, and we were like, oh, to Hollenbach, this one's a long one. Let's get it.
In a bright blue box.
I thought it was grey. Well, it's light blue and grey.
It was light blue. Yeah, it was bright blue, I remember. But we've got different vision issues. Yeah, like, so funny that we used to save our money, didn't we? And get dropped off every week to go shopping. And if we had enough, we bought a new VHS. So we bought To Hell and Back. And we always watched them at Nan's, I remember. But I just remember sitting there as a little kid, just completely engrossed for an hour and a half in this episode. Yeah, to be fair, when you're a kid, an hour and a half is long.
Yeah, it's a long, and I remember just like loving every second of it. I loved it when I realized that Roy Slater was the villain. I loved them getting the little boat. I loved all of like the funny I loved the Denzel stuff. That made me just actually like howl with laughter every time when he kept seeing all the little dells everywhere. I was like, I loved all the stuff in the truck. I don't know. I think it's perfectly paced. I think it's really good script. I think the story is really fun. I love how they bring one of Del's old nemesis into it. Any criticisms can always just be put down to, like some people say that they don't like the way Boise is at the end of this episode, but I don't think it's a big criticism. I think people are just like, wow, like how did their friendship survive this?
Yes, I did ask that question.
Yeah,
as well.
It's interesting to look at that, but at the same time, it's worth looking at their entire friendship as a whole and seeing that they do a lot of stuff like that to each other, and it's kind of an accepted part of business.
Yeah.
And he says at the beginning of the episode, I'm paying you to take the risk. So he didn't hide that. So I can't really think of anything that I dislike about it. It's in my top 5. I mean, I can't have any criticisms of it. I'll try and find some, but
I do have one criticism, but I'll save that for the episode breakdowns. But the thing that I love about this episode, I think this would have been the first one I ever watched that didn't have a laugh track on it.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Or at least the first one I remember. feeling like a real movie.
Yeah, it feels like a movie
to me.
Yeah.
And obviously, as you said, it was shot on film, so it makes sense that it feels like a movie, and the fact that they go to all these fantastical locations, and it's got this wonderful grittiness to it because of the lack of a laugh track. There's a realism to it, and the fact that you can hear everything that's said. I think in almost every episode of Only Fools and Horses, there's at least one joke somewhere or some little bit of dialogue that I miss because the audience laugh track is over it.
Right.
And in this episode, you hear every single little thing. And as I'll mention later on when we do the breakdown, there are certain bits that would have not happened had there been a laugh track on this.
Yeah.
Certain jokes would have been missed or certain things wouldn't have landed as well with the laugh track there. So, and I think that the other thing that's really wonderful about this, it just proves how wonderful Only Fools and Horses is, because it doesn't need a laugh track and it's still amazing. It's still amazing comedy, drama as well for this one. It's fantastic as a show. And yeah, this episode, I agree, is wonderful, hence the
I agree. And
ranking.
Since we're talking about laugh tracks, it makes sense to talk about how a lot of people said, negative things about A Royal Flush, and we're like, oh, it needs the laugh track because it's like cold without it. People always forget about this episode, which was before Royal Flush, which was perfect without the laugh track. Yes. And in my opinion, same for Miami Twice. Like they re-edited laugh tracks over Royal Flush and Miami Twice in the future. Now, can anyone tell me about the Blu-ray release for this episode? Because I know this one's been remastered and released on Blu-ray. Did they put a laugh track on it? I hope they didn't.
Oh, I hope they didn't. It would change.
But anybody
the whole
that owns it, let us know, because I don't have a Blu-ray player. I don't have the Bluray.
What about the IMDb ranking for this one?
I'm curious. Yeah, number 8.
Okay, so it's pretty high up. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we're all in the top 10 for the first time.
Wow, that's great.
And I do think overall this episode is very well received and loved by fans. I don't think there are many people that have got criticisms of it. And if you have any that you can think of, put them below. I love listening to people's different opinions about all the episodes, but I don't think I can recall anybody really criticizing this one too much.
No, it is as reasonably near to a perfect episode.
Yeah.
But as I said, there is a couple of little things that I it's mainly plot points, to be honest, that I have some criticism.
I'm guessing he had plenty of time to write this one and tweak it and stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear much in the way of him complaining, John Sullivan complaining that he had to cut too much out of this one, because I know in a lot of the other episodes he's like, well, a lot of the good stuff ended up getting cut out because it wasn't integral to the plot. I haven't heard him say that about this, but this would have been this first time that he was allowed to really stretch his legs and have an hour and a half, and this is one of the longest ones ever made, isn't it? So
I think it is, yeah. We were talking about this when we were figuring out sort of all the feature-length episodes, and if we have to break them into 2 parts, and we realise this one is an hour and a half, it is one of the longest ones.
Right. So yeah, we've decided that if it's over an hour, we're going to try and break it into 2 parts, unless it's just slightly over an hour. For the most part, there'll be 2 parts if they're over an hour.
Okay, well, so let's get on with the episode breakdown, part 1. La, 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 la,
la. So the opening scene is a plane landing, and so we are thrown straight into this entirely different look of the beginning of an episode, and you can immediately feel the changes. We see a customs sign, an announcer lets us know that this flight is incoming from Amsterdam, and we see a woman and a very unsubtle criminal of some sort give her a nod before he continues to walk around the corner with the crowd. And then the lady performs a stunt of dropping her stuff everywhere at the customs gate, which allows Mr. Suspicious to walk straight out of the exit. And then we fade into the next scene, which is at the Nag's Head.
I think this opening really sets this up as a movie.
Yes, it's very movie.
Rather than a regular episode. It's very movie-esque, the openings part. That's all I had for that.
Okay, so we move on into the Nag's Head. Now, I feel like it doesn't immediately look like the Nag's Head because of the different style of film, but they said they did use all the original set pieces, so it is the Nag's Head, but it looks different because of the angles, the close-ups, and the lack of background noise and stuff. I actually always thought this was shot in a real pub. Didn't you?
Yeah, so did I.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about the angles as well, isn't this the only time we see an angle from across the bar looking at the punters?
Yeah, I think so. Because, well, we don't normally get, it gives the impression of the fourth wall here, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Yes.
It's very strange. I always thought it was a real pub. Yeah, it's so weird to know now that this is a set. It's an impressive set. The scene starts with Rodney telling Del the tale of a woman, in which he is completely disinterested. I think we know for sure that it's the Nag's Head when we see a familiar sight of Mike behind the bar. So after a minute or so of pub banter, we see that the scene is going to be interwoven with the story of this man going through customs suspiciously. So we see him and the woman getting dropped off by a taxi and heading inside a building with an ominous car pulling up in the foreground to show that they're being followed. So cut back to the Nag's Head scene, and Del is doing some selling, watches to be specific. So there's a character here called Teddy who we never see again after this, but he was played by...
It's a shame because he's quite funny.
Yeah, he's funny. Actor Johnny Wade. He has a lot of credits on IMDb. Perhaps most notably, he's been in The Two Ronnies, The Dick Emery Show, and a TV show called You're Only Young Twice from the late 70s. So even though he only plays a tiny part in this, he's got a lot of credits. So cut across the pub and we see that Albert is there too. He's watching an old movie, which was The Cruel Sea from 1953. And he's with a lady that he calls Ruby. It turns out to be Slater's mom. Ruby was played by actress Annie Leake, who, amongst other many credits, played a major role in the 70s TV show Beryl's Lot. This conversation lets us know that her son was Roy Slater. So very convenient for this episode.
Yes, I know, I wrote that. I said, is Slater's mother a regular in the pub? I've never seen her in there before.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it's funny. We do never see her again, and we never see Roy's dad, who is still... No, he's dead.
Yes, because she mentions that in the story that he died.
Yeah, that's why we
and
never
the fact
see...
that he died because of his son joining the police.
He never got over it, yeah. That's a bit extreme, but...
I love the way that they equate being in the police as one of the worst things that can happen to someone in Only Fools and Horses. It's like worse than anything else, any other job that you could possibly get. And everyone is just kind of in on that because the way she says, he joined the police, and Albert reacts exactly the way that she thinks. I guess I don't know if that's actually true, that sort of working class people hate the police. I don't think that's always the case, right?
Yeah, it's not hate. I mean, if we go back to our discussion in The Long Legs of the Law, because this is where John Sullivan wrote that storyline because he said it was within his own family and the reaction was terrible. It's not that they hate the police. It's that they feel like being part of the police is a betrayal to their culture and trade, I think. It's like the grass culture, I guess. Because if your buddy is a police officer, then you can't be open with them about everything, and you know that they have a higher power to answer to. I think when you become a policeman, that's like the worst betrayal of your people. I think that's the way that... I mean, John Sullivan pulled that directly from his own family, so it's got to be true.
I guess... Again, it just always baffles me that Del has so many friends that are policemen. I mean, Hoskins in this episode is a nice guy, and he does warn Del and Rodney, like, watch what you say. I mean, I think that proves in itself that all the police are not bad guys.
No.
Or they're not all gonna dob you in or be grasses. So yeah, I just wondered if that was just a general consensus that people knew that working class people didn't like the police, because I don't think I ever knew that.
Well, it's very important for the plot at this point for them to set up how evil Slater is. But yeah, Hoskins, and as well as Eric back in Russians Are Coming, we know that Del has police acquaintances. And that goes all the way forward to Fatal Extraction, doesn't it? When the police part the crowd for him. So
exactly. He's friends with the rioters and the police.
Yeah, he's friends with everybody, and that's the point. But he does it in a way where he is helping them. So he's selling things to Hoskins and Eric or whatever. But they have an understanding with him. And then it's very important for the script for them to paint Slater as somebody who he doesn't have an understanding with. And Slater didn't just join the police. He became the worst kind of police officer.
He became the chief.
Yeah, the chief. I think he is actually... it's very important to differentiate between Slater and the other police.
Yes.
Yeah. So
true.
That's another reason that this little conversation happens here with Slater. I mean, with Albert and Ruby, because we need this to beginning to show again, oh, we hate Slater.
Yeah, that's true. It's a good way to introduce the character again. I just thought to myself when you were saying about how Del's friends with all the police, it's a shame that none of the ones that happen to patrol the market are friends with him.
Yes, it is a shame that he doesn't have any,
Every time one of the ones is in the market, he has to run away from them.
Yeah.
He doesn't know them and they're going to arrest him. What a shame.
So then after that little scene, we do get another quick shot of the suspicious couple entering a hotel room together. Then we cut back again to the pub and we see Boise and Abdul arrive. And we quickly see, they ask Del if they can see him in the back room. It seems very serious. So there's a little foreshadowing here where Vicky, the barmaid, says that there has been a lot of forged money going around lately. I thought that was pretty interesting little slot in there. Well timed with Boise's arrival into the pub. Side note here, Vicky, the barmaid, was played by actress Kim Clifford, who may be recognisable to anybody who watched the show London's Burning, because she was a major role in that. She has like one line in there. So as Del leaves to go into the back, Trigger also enters the pub and joins Rodney at the bar. And he actually looks a bit smarter with his sweater under his jacket, I noted.
Hello, darling. Where you been all my life?
Piss off.
I always use that line with the birds.
Yeah? Why?
Well, I don't know, really. It's never worked.
So now, in a style completely different to any other episode we've seen, we are getting a three-way cuts between the scenes of the supposed criminals, Del in the dark room talking to Boise and Abdul, and the lightness provided by Rodney and Trigger. So this discussion between Del, Boise and Abdul is going to set up the story for us in quite a concise way. And after a few minutes, we see that their dialogue will actually play over the footage of the criminals. I thought this was a pretty cool technique of a way of sort of setting up the story, because Boise and Abdul are so confident in the security of their scheme, but we actually see that somebody's getting busted. So
yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, and they pour out the diamonds at exactly the same time that Boise says diamond.
Last week I flew to Amsterdam to see the gentleman in question, a Mr. Van Cleef. And after some preliminary discussions, Mr. Van Cleef has agreed to sell us some merchandise.
Merchandise? What sort of merchandise?
Diamonds.
Diamonds?
30 of them.
Cut and polished blue diamonds.
Top of the range, though, boy.
Right, it's going to cost an arm and a leg, isn't it?
50 grand.
Abdul tells Del that the market value in England is £150,000 and they are not going to go through customs. So Boise knows he can discuss this openly with Del. But we, the audience, and Del, are waiting to hear where Del comes into this plan.
What we are asking you to do, Derek, is to take the money to Amsterdam for us.
You want me to take £50,000 to Amsterdam?
Yeah. And
what?
And bring the diamonds back.
Boise and Abdul tell him that Mr. Van Cleef has done this many times, nothing ever goes wrong, and this is played conveniently right over the footage of someone bursting into the diamond smuggler's hotel room and catching them in the act of counting the diamonds. So Del is gaining confidence in the plan, and we, the audience, are seeing things do go wrong. So it's a pretty cool build-up that they've built here for us as the viewers. So this is a good point to add in a little bit of information about Abdul. So side note here, Abdul was played by actor Tony Anholt, and he had been in an episode of Citizen Smith, but in the same year as To Hull and Back, he was cast as a major role in the TV show Howard's Way. So he had major fame from that. So John Challis, interestingly, was actually in 2 episodes of Howard's Way as well. Anholt sadly died young. He died at the age of 61. It's pretty sad. Back to the story. Del refuses point blank.
Up your kilt.
He is out of there until Boise says,
We'll give you 10 grand.
Can I just say that quote or that bit of music would have been something that would have been covered up by a laugh track. I bet.
Maybe, yeah, because of the way he walks back in.
The second he stops and comes back in, it would have been laugh track and we wouldn't have heard, ooh, ooh, what do you do? And I think that timing of that music, it goes so well with Del's reaction. And that's just, one of the things. I'll mention many others, I'm sure, but one of the things that would have been covered by a laugh track.
You're right.
Had it been a normal episode.
Definitely, because when we see the laugh tracks added, how much stuff you can no longer hear, which is such a bummer. So Del comes back in, Homer Simpson style, and the conversation goes on. He has his reservations, but Boise and Abdul try really hard to convince him, and they say that they chose him specially because they could trust him.
Someone who was skinned.
Del protests to get the offer up to 15 grand. Now, this is important because it comes back later. Abdul says,
We are paying you to take the risk, Derek.
It's a big gamble, Del. But he who dares wins, doesn't he?
We don't hear the end of the deal, but Del says 15, so it fades back to the pub and Del comes out of the room. So we have a feeling he took it. He grabs Albert and Rodney quickly and they leave.
One thing I will say about this scene is I love how layered this opening scene is.
Yeah.
So we've got Slater's brought up, and the way that he's brought up is very good. Trigger has a little bit to do in it. We've got the side joke about Rodney and his disastrous love life again, just sort of honing back to other episodes. And then we've also got the main plot, which is the diamonds brought up in a very clear and fun and interesting way. And obviously with all of the sort of capture of the previous diamond smugglers intertwined with all that. I just think it's a really well written and it's got a really concise way of getting us into the plot. And I think it's just brilliant writing and acting and filmed and everything. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's great.
It's so clear and easy even for us to understand as kids. This is another thing, like we were not put off by it because it was too complicated or anything. We just watched it and we understood it as kids. So I think it's so well written. Yeah. Can't say that enough,
Agreed.
I guess. Yeah.
I had one question that I hope someone can answer to me. Why would your watch play 36 different national anthems?
Right, I forgot
I
about
understand
that.
if it was a phone or anything else, but a watch? Why on earth would you ever need a watch to play 36 national anthems? So if anyone can please answer that in the comments, that would be great.
Yeah, and why would your doorbell do that? That's what they have later, right?
I mean, doorbells, it makes more sense than a watch. I mean, why would a watch need to ever play any national anthem, let alone 36 of them?
I know, yeah. I think it's just one of those funny Dellisms, isn't it? Like, he has things that do really stupid things that no one needs. Yeah.
True. I just think it's really funny. And then, sorry, one other thing I wanted to say is I think Del is a great choice for doing the smuggling. I think Abdul and Boise chose really well.
He's probably the only friend he had that could do it.
It's not like they could ask Trigger because he's too daft, isn't he?
I was going to say that this is the only time Trigger's in the episode, right?
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a weird, like, they added him in because they wanted him to be in it. But yeah, he's not involved in the plot. Okay, so the scene changes to the traffic lights, and we can just hear Rodney and Del's arguing voices as the van pulls up in front of Sid's cafe. Actually called that now and not the Old Oak Cafe. So this was a cafe nearby to Hull's Charles Street, which was used for these market scenes before they head inside.
I did actually want to say that. I said it looked like the same set as the road that Del was walking down later in the episode in Hull. So this was filmed in Hull as well.
Yeah, everything was filmed in Hull, all the locations.
That makes sense, yeah, because it looks the same as those streets that Del's walking down later when he goes to hire the boat.
Right, yeah. But this is supposed to be Sid's Cafe, and as we know, Sid's Cafe changes a lot, but I'm pretty sure I've put this note in a later episode, but it was kind of a thing. It was like a deliberate thing to have Sid's Cafe keep changing because he kept getting closed down for the health issues, so... it's not weird that Sid's Cafe is different all the time because Sid had... But then it goes back. I know, it goes back.
I was going to say it goes back. I was going to say in dates, it's back to the same one as the Long Legs of the Law.
And Miami twice.
Yeah.
I know. But maybe Sid had several locations. I don't know.
Maybe.
I definitely put this note in a later episode. Because you know why? Because the one that goes back is the set. That's why.
Yeah, it looks like a set. Yeah, that's why.
So versus all these actual cafes that they use. So this was a real cafe that they used. Rodney's very angry about the deal. So Del is trying to rationalize the crime by saying,
Look, Rodney, this is not drugs or guns, is it? I mean, that sort of stuff kills people. It's only little diamonds.
To be fair, that's a fair rationale.
He tells Rodney that selling
I'm convinced.
He tells Rodney that selling diamonds is a blow for world peace. So we see a classic Del reasoning here, but he hasn't even dropped the clanger yet.
We're just the couriers.
Hang on a minute. What do you mean, we?
Don't think I'm going to cut my little kid brother out of a deal like this, do you? What sort of bloke do you think I am?
So here, Del lets us know that his plan for slipping through customs is to actually use Rodney as a diversion. Now, I don't want to focus too much on this because we know that they don't actually go down this route, but the plan is to come in by plane through Gatwick, and he's going to use Rodney's previous conviction to make Rodney a target while he sails through unnoticed.
When we come back through customs, who are they going to nab? Me, the sophisticated jet setter in a camel hair coat? Or you, the boomtown rat?
We're going to pull me, aren't they?
In the end, he actually convinces Rodney by telling him that his share is $5,000. So classic Rodney gives in for the money. They head off towards the market to start the day, but who pulls up beside them? Only Denzel. So this episode follows as one door closes. So he must be super scarred from that, even though he's happy at the end of one door closes.
Yeah, we have to ignore the last shot of one door closes as one door closes. Otherwise, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he yells at Del immediately.
Denzel, my son!
No!
So what?
No, I don't want to buy anything. No, I don't want to sell anything. And no, I don't want you to make me a millionaire.
So he tells Del that he and Corinne have just gotten back together and she's made him promise that he won't drink, gamble, or see Del. So Del brushes all of this off and heads off, leaving Denzel to basically set up his storyline for this episode.
Everywhere I go, you know, he's on the phone to me. He's at my front door. He's in the betting shop. He's in the pub.
And now he's in a bloody traffic jam. You know what, Rodney? I get this feeling that he's haunting me. You know what I mean?
For me, this storyline, like I mentioned earlier, cracked me up so much as a kid. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna follow
me
the
too.
storyline.
Me too.
I absolutely loved it. So Rodney sympathizes with Denzel, and Denzel pulls away quickly before Del can get back. So
First of all, I want to say that I love the fact that they did the aftermath of Del telling Rodney about the diamonds and the plan rather than the conversation itself, because they easily could have just gone back to the flat and done Del telling Rodney about the plan to do the diamonds, but they have like the morning after Del told him, which I think is a really cool angle to do. Also, I really liked the idea that Del had. I think it's quite smart, actually, about setting Rodney up to take the fall. But the other question I had is, since they're traveling together and they're brothers, wouldn't there be some suspicions on Del as well? Because they would know they're brothers, right, from the name on the flight together. I wouldn't have thought it would have been like they'll just completely ignore Del and just take Rodney. I'd have thought they'd have questioned them both together if they suspected one.
Yeah, it's actually,
I don't know.
It's very, very risky what they were planning to do to fly in.
Totally.
So yes, I'm glad that they decided not to do that.
I also wanted to mention that Del says,
Yeah, I mean, we'll be there at least an hour.
but I actually wondered if they should have made the trip longer to make it look less suspicious, because surely it looks even more suspicious if they just go to Holland for like an hour and then leave again.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to stay for the weekend and make it look like it was a legitimate holiday? I don't know.
I always used to think that was weird as a kid, but I guess a lot of people do travel for meetings and stuff and then fly back. I don't know.
I just feel like if you're trying to look like you are a holiday maker, don't I? If you're trying to look like an actual holiday maker, you would go for what looks like you had a holiday there and not just an hour.
Yes.
But yeah, that was just something, a bit of a plot point. And then finally, I asked the question, what was Del going to put in the back of Denzel's lorry? Because it looks like Del goes off to get something from his van. He's like, I'll fill that up for you. He goes to get it. He comes out with a suitcase that he's going to sell the watches from. So I was like, was he just going to put some watches in the back of Denzel's lorry?
Maybe.
And let Denzel drive off with them? It's such a strange thing. I don't know, because Del looks disappointed when Denzel starts driving off, as though he was going to put something in the back of his lorry.
It was probably just the watches. Yeah, I don't know, because
That's such a weird thing to do. Just leave watches in the back of the lorry and be like, enjoy, Denzel.
I think he just did that sale and return thing with people all the time, like give people stuff and then take it back if they couldn't sell it. Okay, so we're going to cut to the market and we see Del is now selling some watches in a rather interesting way. It starts on his knees. So
they've got that in the musical. Did you know? I watched a scene from the Only Fools and Horses musical the other day online, and they have that joke. They say, these are Japanese, these are hairy knees.
That's so interesting. I've never tried to watch the musical. Okay. So there's definitely a lot of time spent on this back and forth, showing Del different sales tactics here. Like it's a kind of an uncomfortable moment where he makes the price higher for the black guy to urge them to argue back.
Yeah, I actually said, I think when I was younger, I didn't really understand when he did the £15 to the black bloke thing. But I think it's about manipulating everyone, isn't it, to buy? Because as soon as you sell one, everyone else buys, apparently. But I just don't understand, obviously, in real life, would that work? Where you insult someone and then they agree to buy it because you insulted them and said it was higher price to them. Because he says, why can't I have it for £10 then? And then he goes, of course you can. But would you be like, I'd be like, I don't want it now.
Yeah.
And then the fact that everyone else just like floods and starts buying them, and Rodney's actually like snatching the money out of people's hands and giving them a watch.
I know.
It's just a bit, obviously it's done for the movie, but yeah, it's just a bit unrealistic.
Actually, that's one thing I don't know if I've read anywhere is did John Sullivan make these things up, these sales tactics, or did he see them in action? I'm guessing he saw them because the whole base of Del's character was based on real life fly pictures. Maybe he saw this work, so we can't say it wouldn't work if he knows that it did in real life. Yeah. He also knows the whole, like, say the price and the crowd fizzles out kind of thing, which happens a lot with Del. So
yeah,
I'm guessing these are realistic things, but who knows? Yeah.
That must be such a tough job. I can't imagine doing a job like that, where your livelihood depends on people making their mind up and wanting to buy crap that you're selling. Can I just say one other thing about the beginning of the scene? I love Rodney's fake acting in the market when he says,
steady on, Del, think of the profit margin.
I love how good Nick Lyndhurst is at acting badly. It's the same for the scene in the courtroom in Hole in One.
And the same for
there was no warning notice.
Sorry, viewers. The Lord's work called. I know, I really love Rodney. I love it when Rodney speaks like that. Steady on, Del. Think of the profit margin. Yeah. So the watches start to sell for £10 each, but unfortunately this is where Rodney is not such a bad lookout, and he notices a copper. So they run away, as usual, in a very unsubtle way. And Nick Lyndhurst is absolutely hilarious here, tripping over his gangly limbs.
Yes.
They comically turn the corner and run straight into...
Slater! Well, what a coincidence!
So Slater is now a chief inspector.
Chief Inspector.
It's like a horrible sound effect every time he says
it's
it,
gross.
which is really gross.
Chief. So Slater is now the chief. We haven't seen Slater since midway through series 3, so we did not get to see what happened after the whole microwave incident. But we can deduce that nothing has changed. And Del and Rodney try to run away, but they can't get out of this. And they end up having a cup of tea with Slater in Sid's cafe.
First of all, I asked, wouldn't everyone in the market know Del and Rodney by now and know that they're there illegally? Because they must have seen them fleeing every time a police officer comes. I'm just wondering, is like everybody in the market not gonna tell the police or report Del for selling?
Well, the market would not be a place where people would be walking around reporting people because people want bargains.
No, I don't mean the punters buying. I mean the other market traders, because like they would see Del all the time on their turf selling in between their stores and doesn't have a license and he always runs away. I just wonder if anyone, because Del must have some enemies. Sometimes I just wondered if they would report him or anyone would report him to the police.
It's always set up that he kind of like throws his little stall up and moves around a lot. So I don't think that's really an issue. I think they mostly just have an understanding. A lot of them are probably illegal, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm probably overthinking it. I just thought about that when I was watching this episode. I said I love the way that Slater's reintroduced.
Yeah.
In the middle of Del and Rodney running from the police, and they run into an even worse police officer. I think that's really nicely done.
Yes.
And I feel like Del is always selling dodgy watches. I think this is like the 3rd time we've seen him selling dodgy watches.
Yeah, he does seem to have a thing about watches, doesn't he?
Yeah, always selling dodgy watches. I also said, would Slater really arrest Del for not accepting a cup of tea? Because that's certainly what's implied here. Just, again, ridiculous. I know we had a few moments like that in May the Force Be With You, when it looked like he was going to arrest Del for something really stupid. Or Rodney for bumping into him in the pub. I mean, really stupid stuff like that.
I mean, he wouldn't arrest him for that on paper, but that would be the trigger, and then he would, like, arrest him for something else. Yeah, he wouldn't be able to bring him in and be like, oh, you didn't want a cup of tea at Sid's, yeah. But he, it's threatening, the way that he's like...
It's threatening, yeah. But even so, it's just a bit like, I can't believe Del wouldn't be like, what are you going to do, arrest me for that? Like, that's ridiculous. But then I also put, surely Slater would be fuming mad with Del if the last time they saw each other was... May the Force Be With You, because Del stitched Slater up in that situation. So Slater would be hating on Del so much. And he doesn't seem to have anything like that towards him, to be honest, in the scene. No more than before, anyway.
I mean, yeah, so he doesn't seem to be out to get Del in this scene, because as we see in the next scene, he points out that he will take the pressure off Del in the market. He knows Del is fly pitching, and he could have arrested him right there and then. Yeah. But the whole point of him bringing him in here is to try to get information, which is way more valuable than a quick and simple arrest in this case. So he's trying to form an affiliation here with Del.
I've got to say, this is a huge plot hole, though, because if he didn't find out who the courier was, that would be better for his plan to work. Because if he finds out who the courier is before the courier makes the run to Amsterdam, surely he could have put a whole stop to it, because everyone else in the police force would know who the courier was. He wasn't keeping it to himself. So then the diamonds would never actually get picked up. They'd arrest him when he's got the money leaving for Amsterdam. So actually, it's in Slater's best interest to not find out who the courier is before he gets to Van Cleef's office. And of course, Van Cleef, as we see later, calls immediately after Del leaves and tells Slater that he's the courier. So he doesn't need to find out who the courier is. So that's a bit of a plot hole there. I suppose to Hoskins, he can make it look like he's looking for the courier, but he doesn't actually need to find out who the courier is.
I was going to say, it doesn't...
Do you see what I mean?
Yes, I understand, and I don't think it is actually a plot hole. I think it's quite believable that Slater is just filling his days with this, like, fake, because later he's doing it again with Hoskins. He pretends that he has figured out that Del is the courier, remember? Later.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
he's
he does it after the diamonds have been picked up already.
So at this point, he's not actually trying to find out. You're right, he's got to wait until the deal's been done, but he has to make it look like he is. So he's just basically filling his days with these mindless conversations.
Well, so then I have another point about the next scene, actually, that maybe is a little bit more on the point of that there's something strange going on here. But you carry on that's all I had for that scene. So if you want to go into the next scene.
Sure, yeah, we can move on. Well, I'm going to go into Sid's cafe, yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. So cut to Sid's cafe, and they are pushing the suitcase back and forth. between them. So they're like trying to land it on each other. Sid calls Slater Detective Inspector, just like Trig should have back in May the Force Be With You. And everybody in the cafe ducks their heads. So Slater and Hoskins join Del and Rodney at the table, and we get a very important conversation here. So it's important to note here that Hoskins is very much not Slater's ally here when he whispers to Del and Rodney before he comes to the table. He says,
Watch what you say. Slater's a bastard.
yeah, so he's trying to help them out. So Hoskins actually gives us a bit of valuable context here. Slater is being forced to retire in a few months and he wants to go out in a blaze of glory. His dirty tactics have backfired on him when he forced a blind man to sign a full confession to being a peeping Tom. So we do get a nice feeling that Hoskins is doing all he can here to help Rodney and Del out, but he can't actually do everything to help them. Slater joins them at the table and lets them know, in what appears to be a casual conversation, that he's after a group of diamond smugglers led by a geezer named Hendricks, and they keep getting away because of lack of evidence. So here, Slater says that he's heard a whisper that they're trying it again.
A couple of local businessmen, shall we say, have put the money up. Now we know who they are, don't we, Hoskins?
Boys in it.
Hoskins!
Do you think that he said that line then to continue helping Rodney and Del? Do you think he told them on purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's trying to probably help them.
Because it would help, wouldn't it? It would help Del, like, because he knows Del knows everyone, to know that they're on to Boise and Abdul. I mean, Hoskins' motive is completely different, right? Because he's trying to catch Slater. So he wants the deal to go ahead so they can catch Slater. So it's quite a thick
That's funny.
plot.
Yeah, you got like a three-way kind of deception kind of thing because
three different types of deception.
They all
going
three know something that the other two don't know. Like Hoskins knows that Slater is actually the criminal. Slater knows he's the criminal, and Del and Rodney know they're the couriers. So it's actually quite clever, yeah. But we don't know. We don't know at this point that we only know Del and Rodney's side. Yeah, so we don't know that Slater is actually the guy that's taking the diamonds, and we also don't know that Hoskins knows Slater is the guy. So,
is the guy taking the diamonds, and that he's done it before. But then actually I was going to say this, can I just mention the plot point I said that I was a bit suspicious about in this scene? Why would Slater share the name Hendricks with Del?
Yeah, he didn't need to.
Because
he didn't need to.
That is very risky to do that, because let's say that Del had gone to Boise and Abdul and he said that he caught this guy Hendricks already doing it, and they're like, Hendricks Van Cleef. Exactly. Oh my god, the guy we're dealing with. Like, that is so stupid for Slater to put that name out there.
He didn't need to. Yeah.
And it's kind of stupid that Del didn't tell Boise and Abdul everything that Slater said as well. He should have done. And if he had done, he would have mentioned, because later on he mentions it.
Yes.
In the scene at the end, he says, that guy you were talking about, he wouldn't have been called Van Cleef, would he? And it's like, so Del does remember the name because he remembered it later on.
Yeah, it's very clever as well, because when he's in Amsterdam, the office door says H. Van Cleef. Yeah, so it's very clever, because if you are like detective type, you are going to see that and be like, wait a minute. Yeah, it's all very clever.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Del didn't catch on earlier, because Del is very quick to figure it all out at the end. So I just think that he would have or should have mentioned that to Boise and Abdul, that he already nabbed a guy for doing it and he was called this, and I just want to check that's not the guy you're dealing with, is it?
I think you're right. I mean, I think in reality he wouldn't have dropped that name, but I think that's deliberate so that the audience gets a little bit of a clue. Like, if you are clever, you've got something to work on there. Yeah, like maybe you see the H, because I never noticed the H until after, like, later, and I was like, oh yeah, it says H Van Cleef. Yeah, it's clever. It's just a nice writing. You got to give the audience something to work with. So the revelation of this allows Del and Rodney to see that their deal is very much in the spotlight of the police here. So luckily, Slater doesn't seem to suspect Del at all at this point. And he's actually just trying to see if Del will be a grass again. The entire exchange shows the slimy side of Roy again. Weird, friendly, yet threatening, double-layered dialogue. We get a number of telling glances between Del and Rodney showing how uncomfortable they are. And they now know that their deal is being focused on by the police, and that Roy knows the courier will be flying in with the goods next week. So it's all a bit bad. After Roy and Terry leave, Del and Rodney breathe a huge sigh of relief, and Rodney thinks the whole deal is off. But Del has other ideas. He heads over to the payphone and he calls Boise at his office. Now, this is the first time we've actually seen Boise at work, in his office, apart from that scene outside in Go West, Young Man. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's like in the car park.
Yeah, and I feel like this office is a lot more formal than you might have imagined. You get to see that Boise's very upmarket. He's helping Mr. Bickerstaff.
I love the way he says that. Mr. Bickerstaff.
Yeah, it's very formal. He's helping Mr. Bickerstaff when he's called away to take the call.
He knows.
How?
I don't know, do I? He's got more glasses than Fison's.
So Del tells Boise that Slater knows he and Abdul have put the money up, and he doesn't suspect that Del is the courier. Boise at this point is very worried, and he wants to give Del the 50 grand tonight to make sure that Slater can't find out at his house. So this is where they arrange to meet. Boise says,
Anyway, we can't meet in any public place. He sees the three of us together. He's got a full story.
We got to come up with somewhere dark and secluded.
Somewhere where we can lock the doors and be on our own. And nobody will be able to see us.
Del is smiling as the scene cuts to the Lorry Park. More notes on the cafe?
First of all, Sid's Cafe looks so gross. Smoking while
It always
serving
looks
food.
gross, yeah.
Yuck.
That's part of this.
No, but smoke, like a big fag sticking out of your mouth while you're like serving food up. I know it's like the 80s. I know it was different, but that is so gross.
It's actually in the script every time that Sid has a cigarette hanging over the food. It's deliberate because I think it's supposed to depict what it was really like.
I was going to say, it's interesting with Sid's character obviously in the 2000s episodes, they really cleaned him up considerably from his Sid's Cafe days, because he was running the pub, obviously. In those,
and when
episodes.
did the no smoking in restaurants law go in? That can't have been until like the
2007, July 2007.
Yeah, it was around the early 2000s, I remember, because my friends had to start going outside at the pub, and it was like, oh, we all have to go outside if you want to smoke. Yeah.
I mean, I personally loved it because I'm not a smoker and I've never been one.
I'm not either.
Yes, I'm sure for smokers it was very annoying, although everyone's very used to it now, I'm sure. But I also had the same question, I think you asked this in May the Force Be With You, about Rodney actually says in this episode when they say Slater's a bastard, yeah, I remember from the last time, which implies that was May the Force Be With You was the last time. But then Jenny mentioned before, what about the time he was pulled over for speeding in the three-wheeled van? When was that supposed to have happened? Because Rodney only met Slater in May the Force Be With You. And then the next time he sees him is this episode. But then he arrested Rodney before he went into prison for speeding in the van. So when was that? Yeah.
It has to have been between those two episodes. But Rodney could have been talking about the last time in the court, although it does seem a little bit too casual.
It does seem to be. Well, he says it, I remember from the last time, like, and Hoskins is there and Del's there. I just feel like that was them who knew about it because it was May the Force Be With You. I don't know. I just think, that's a bit of a plot hole, I guess. But maybe not till the class of 62 is that a plot hole. I also asked the question, or said, isn't it a bit stupid to make such an important phone call in Sid's Cafe where all these dodgy ass people are around? Even Sid is like looking over like he's going to grass him up. I mean, everyone in that cafe would have heard that phone call, no matter how quietly Del was trying to speak. So it just seems a bit silly for him to go over and make that phone call right away. You'd think you'd have gone home or done it in a more private place. I just think that's a little bit of a plot hole as well, but just to keep things moving, I guess they had to do it then and there.
I guess even though Boise and Del are friends, they could have tracked Del's home phone line to Boise right after that conversation. So it makes more sense for Del to call from a payphone. It's like a thing that criminals do. Yeah.
Payphone, yes, but maybe not the one in Sid's Cafe where there's loads of people around.
Del is able to turn around and make it a little bit quieter.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that doesn't look any more suspicious. Plus, we know there's loads of people in there because they all put their collars up and turned away when he said, "Here you go, Detective Inspector." So we know the cafe's full of people. So yeah, I don't know.
And it is insinuated that people are listening. Yeah, when Del looks at Sid. So yes, you're right. Yeah, I should have maybe gone to a red phone booth
somewhere
outside.
Else, stood on that phone call.
So Del is smiling on the phone as the scene cuts into the Lorry Park. So we see that this is what he was thinking of. I've seen a few people say online, like, oh, Boise wouldn't have been able to see him laugh and point at his nose in this case. But we also don't know that he didn't just say it right after this, because obviously
I'm sure
did.
He just said it afterwards.
I know. Some people actually put that as like a plot hole or a blooper or something. I'm like, they're like, oh, it's so silly. Boise wouldn't have been able to see him. But like, the whole way that this is shot is deliberately to show that Del is, thinking of he has an idea, So
yes, exactly. So you don't have to state it like that. Yeah,
I think it's
that's
clever.
Really funny that people think that's a plot hole.
So the scene was filmed in a storage area and car park behind the studio that they used to build all the sets on Hedon Road. So we see Boise and Abdul in the lorry, and Boise lets us know where they are.
The back of Denzel's bleeding lorry. I mean, what a place to hold a meeting.
Personally, I think it's a good idea.
As Derek said, this is the last place Slater would think of looking.
Poor Denzel. He's even managed to get roped into a diamond smuggling deal now.
I
feel
know.
so bad for him.
Denzel's not wrong just to try and
he's
stay
not
away from
wrong.
Del. He really is a bad friend.
Yeah, he always manages to get Denzel into trouble. So we see the trotter van pull up and Del hops out. He tells Rodney that he has to give him a signal if anything goes down, which leads to a pretty funny bickering over what the signal should be.
Make it sound like an owl. An owl sound. You know, like this. Oh, that. Yeah. No. Oh. I can do bunny shadows, though. I've got enough of your bloody sarcasm, Rodney.
I would argue there is no way Del could hear Rodney in the back of that lorry, and we're right, he can't.
Right, yeah, no, he couldn't hear him, he couldn't see anything. So I don't know how on earth Rodney was supposed to give him a signal from in that. The only thing he could have done is knocked on the side of the lorry. That would have been something they would have been able to hear, but then to do that, he probably would have been seen by the people that they were trying to warn him about.
There is no signal that he could have given him. I cannot think of one. So Del creeps up on Boise and Abdul and pretends to be a copper.
Hello? What are you doing in there then?
So the different personalities here between Boise, Abdul and Del Boy make these scenes very memorable and funny, because you have the very nervous, panicking Boise, a level-headed professional Abdul, and the little prankster Del Boy. So Boise insists that where they're meeting kind of sucks, but Del is very sure of himself here. He hasn't even told Denzel, which is a little reminder for us here that Denzel doesn't know they're in the back of the van.
Apart from Rodney out there in a van, we're the only 3 people in the world who know we're in here.
Which cuts nicely to Slater finishing off a phone call, and it turns out he's received a report of 3 men breaking into the back of the lorry. They're on their way to the lorry park. Oh no. Okay,
I have to interject here. There's no way a detective inspector would be sent out on a job like this, right? There's like a detective inspector and whatever Hoskins is, and then there's another police officer. Why on earth? I can't say Hoskins, Hoskins. There is no way that these 3 people would be sent out together. That one police officer, Parker, might be sent on his own, but there's no way they'd send those 3 to go and do this job.
Well, actually, the only reason that they would be is because he mentions in the last scene that he's looking out for 3 men meeting, right? Boise and Abdul and the courier. So that is a little bit of an argument as to why, because he now knows there's 3 men meeting up in a dark place. So that's the only thing I can think to justify it. You're right. Under ordinary circumstances, they would not send a chief out.
No.
I wrote here, this is the part of the episode for me where the drama really kicks it up a notch. As soon as we know that Slater's on the way to this lorry park is where the story really starts getting going, right? Like, now we know that the guys are in the back of that lorry and we know they're in peril.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Abdul is giving Del all the essential information about the exchange this Friday at noon. He gives him the address, tells him he must memorize it and destroy it. He also mentions that his cousin, Hussein, will be present to check the merchandise. And we get our second foreshadowing reference here to the cat's eyes that Del wears in his cufflinks.
Don't want you coming back with a load of Mickey Mouse gear, do we, Del Boy?
Watch it, Boise. My mum gave me them.
Cat's eyes are just fake diamonds, right? I never really fully understood that when I was younger.
That's right, yeah. Just fake diamonds. So he's able to pass these off later as the real diamonds. So he basically just has like sparkly cufflinks and the cat's eyes. So yeah, that's an important reference. So we get the quick exchange of the money here. It's important to note that Del does not get the combination for the suitcase, so he can't just take the money. Then Abdul tells Del,
if anything should go wrong, nothing can go wrong. But if it should, you never heard of us.
Bringing Abdul had nothing to do with it. You never heard the name Van Cleef. It's just a precaution, Del Boy.
Terrific. That means I'm up on offer, doesn't it, eh?
That's what we're paying you 15 grand for.
So Boise and Abdul clear off and they warn Del Boy to give them a minute to get clear. So we get a reminder here that Rodney is still watching from the van as they scurry off. He's sitting reading his Playboy as their car pulls away, and then terrifyingly we see the cop car pull up straight away. Rodney looks horrified and tries to inconspicuously sink down into the seat. How terrible must these cops have been to not see the van?
I know. I literally wrote that in huge capital letters. I'm like, surely they would have seen the Trotter's van. It is one of the most eyesore-ish vans in the world, to the point where you would not be able to not see the yellow colour, if nothing else. And then the fact that it's the Trotter's 3-wheel van, it's like iconic. even within the world of the universe of Peckham, it's an iconic van that everyone knows. So there's no way that they wouldn't have seen that where it was parked. If it was down like an alley in the shadows, then maybe it would have been fine. But it wasn't. It was right there in the like almost next to the lorry. So there's no way.
Yeah, they should have parked it around a corner or something here because it doesn't really make sense. But
yeah.
So here we get the introduction of PC Parker, who is played by actor Jeff Stevenson, and he was in another episode. Can you remember?
Okay, another episode for Parker to be in. Oh God, that'll bug me if I can't think of it. What episode could it be?
Okay, I can just.
I have no idea.
So he's actually the stand-up comedian that would warm up the crowd before the live recordings, and he was actually in Little Problems as the stand-up comedian at Rodney's stag do.
Oh my God, that doesn't even look like him.
I always thought that too, but I mean, obviously it is like a few years before that, and he's dressed in the cop outfit. But if you look closely, you can tell he's the same guy. I guess he met John Sullivan a long time ago because he was in an episode of Citizen Smith. So I think he still does the rounds, like the convention rounds and stuff now. So Rodney makes an attempt at his owl sound.
What was that, sir?
Don't know. Sounded like a crow.
And if Del didn't hear that, then he was never going to hear the soft owl hoot.
To be honest, I've got to say, I actually think that sound Rodney makes sounds like a woman being smothered by a blanket, which to me would be even more alarming. I'd be like, oh no, someone's being held like hostage somewhere. Hoskins somewhere. I have to go and... Hoskins, I have to go and find them.
I mean, to me it sounds like a bird, but yeah, crows are very loud and like, kind of sound. That's a duck. Derek the duck.
That was Derek.
So luckily for Del, they have started looking at other lorries when he peeps out of the lorry to see that they're there. Because if he'd stuck his head out at the wrong moment, that would have been very unfortunate. So he freaks out and he ducks back in with his cigar. We see the terrified expression on Rodney's face as they approach the lorry. The tension is palpable. And the doors swing open and they all peer inside with their torches, and it looks like it's just a musty pile of blankets in the corner. So we're pretty relieved there. We see that Del has managed to hide himself.
What lucky blankets they were.
I know, if they hadn't been there, Del would have been screwed.
I think when I was younger, I used to think that was his coat that he used to kind of cover himself up and make it look, because it's a similar colour to the blankets, but obviously that would be impople because his coat wouldn't have been big enough.
Like a...
Since Del's coat is made to measure.
He pulled like a Samwise Gamgee, like where it turns into a rock. Like his...
Yeah, that's probably what I'm thinking.
It's really hilarious, yeah, but then Roy says it's been dead a fortnight, so I think that's the smell of Del's cigar, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that was so dangerous, putting a blanket over you when you've got a lit cigar. I mean, that easily could have caught fire.
But we're very lucky he didn't catch fire.
Especially because those look like oily rags.
Yeah, I mean, it could have had oil and grease. Yeah, it could have blown the lorry up. So Rodney seems really baffled to see them leaving, and we see a choking Del emerge from under the blankets, and he staggers forward and finds that he's locked in the back of the lorry. So just as we see Denzel and his boombox emerging from the transport cafe and heading for his lorry, Rodney tries to warn him, but he cannot hear him over his boombox. The lorry fires up and we see Del calling and banging. So here, there's a big plot issue, in my opinion. How on earth did the police car not see the van drive away right past them? It drives right past them.
Well, and on top of that, how on earth was Rodney able to follow Denzel? Because he's actually really far behind him, as we see in all of the rest of the footage, and yet he seems to pull up exactly where Denzel's lorry is, outside that cafe. Even on the motorway bit, he's really far behind. I can't imagine when they got into Hull, into the city centre, how Rodney was catching up with him or knowing where he was going.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably just insinuated that he could see the truck from quite a long way. But yeah, there would have been a lot of lorries going up that way, so... I don't know. But either way, he did. So back at the police station, we are given the relief that Slater doesn't think the money exchange has happened yet. So maybe he does know. Maybe he deliberately didn't catch them. I don't know. Because if he'd caught them, it would have messed up his whole plan, wouldn't it? So it could be possible that Slater deliberately didn't see the van that was right in front of him. But anyway, he says he wants a watch put on Boise and Abdul, which I think could have been useful before today.
I think that's why they said it though, right? They said it in that bit because otherwise they would have known that they went to meet Del in the lorry park if they'd have had it on before that.
Exactly.
So,
So Slater says there's no sign of their three-wheeled van, apart from when it drove right past them last night. So
I know.
Hoskins actually suggests here that maybe Del Boy is the courier. So Slater's reaction is...
Something's just struck me, Hoskins. Maybe we've been underestimating Del Boy. All these years he may have been fooling us with his 9-carat gold and his wide-awake suits. I mean, Del Boy's well acquainted with the ways of this world. He knows all the wrinkles. He invented a lot of them himself. And his soppy brother's got GCEs.
What are you trying to say, sir?
What I'm saying is, Hoskins, maybe them two's more intelligent than we've given them credit for. Yeah. It's all beginning to fit. The Dutch firm are the suppliers, Boise and Abdul are the money men, and the Trotters are the brains.
This is where it's really funny, and it cuts back to Del screaming, Denzel, on the back of the...
I mean, that is purely there, isn't it, for
Yeah.
that reveal and that joke, because the timing is fantastic. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, so we get another really good cutscene here where the voice is kind of depicting, like Slater's thoughts are depicting what's going on.
Mm.
Rodney kind of falls asleep behind the wheel as well, just to add a little bit to the Trotters being the brains. Then we cut back to Slater and he's actually ripping on Hoskins. He does not think that Del is capable of pulling this off. He's going to find out later that he was.
I was going to say, do you think, though, at this point, because again, this is something that I wonder, maybe he knew all along that Del was the courier and all of this was just to shit them up and make Del feel shit and throw Hoskins off the scent that Del was the courier?
It's
I
not
don't
meant
know.
to be because he doesn't find out, does he? Maybe he suspects, he could strongly suspect, but he doesn't know until Van Cleef calls.
Maybe he
does
suspects because, again, he can't have them find out. Yeah, he doesn't know for sure maybe until Van Cleef calls. But yeah, I mean, he can't let Hoskins or let anyone know that he knows who the courier is before the deal happens, or the deal won't happen, and he needs the deal to happen to get the diamond.
Right, exactly, yeah. So we don't know exactly at what point Slater is clued into this, but he could have a strong suspicion at this point, especially if he actually did see the van, which any policeman should have seen, especially a chief.
Well, this is the thing, because he was actually the one that brought up the Trotters, not Hoskins, because he says...
No one's behaving in an unusual manner. Well, no more unusual than normal. Everybody's just carrying on the same.
Except the Trotters.
Like, he's the one who brings it up. So, I don't know. I feel like there may be a little bit of a double bluff there.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Could be, yeah. So Rodney is now in hot pursuit of Denzel's lorry, and we continue following Denzel north on the A1, and here begins Denzel's haunting. He lowers the volume on his radio, and he hears... It's kind of insinuated here that Denzel thinks he's imagining it, so he cranks his music back up, and that's where
What a life. Dun, dun,
So I cut the
dun.
scene here. Did you have any other notes before we sunrise? Sunrise.
Not many, because I said quite a few. Sunrise, she come in the morning. There's not too many. I just a couple of little things. I did say, I was surprised they hadn't put Boyce and Abdul under surveillance before this, but again, needs to be done. I love the line, I can do bunny shadows, though. That's really funny. Makes me laugh. And the way that Del reacts, because Rodney is very sarcastic, but it's wonderful. I wonder why they didn't let Del know that the money was fake. I've been trying to think about this from a plot point. It actually doesn't make sense that they wouldn't tell Del, because Del, I think, might have felt better in some ways if he'd known that he was carrying £50,000 in fake money. Because if he did get pulled over at customs and they were like, what's this? And he was like, it's fake. It's a prop. Like, he could have gotten away with it better than if it had been real. And also, I mean, obviously it might have been like quite worrying for him in the office, but that was going to happen anyway as soon as he opened the briefcase and saw that it was fake money. So, I don't know. I just feel like they could have told Del this.
They think later that Del wouldn't notice that the money was fake.
Yeah, but then Boise also says I wasn't intending on giving Del funny money. I know that's because he thinks that Del would have found out naturally and would have like hurt him for it. But Del is smart. He's a smart guy. And of course, as he said, he knows kosher readies, although of course that's taken away again at the end. But yeah, but what I'm saying is it seems to me that this is something they could have shared with Del.
I mean, they could have. I guess that, they both made the decision to give him fake money. So they made the decision not to tell Del that the money was counterfeit. I think it's probably because they didn't want him to, he maybe would have refused to do the exchange if he'd known, because he would have been the one who would get in trouble with all those people in the office.
Yeah,
so maybe
true.
they just didn't want him to back out. It's not very fair or nice of them, and this is something that you could definitely criticize them for. But yeah, they didn't tell him because they thought that the deal would probably get cut off at that point.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, I just had a slight, very picky plot point about the three men breaking into the back of a lorry. Abdul and Boise had been in there, it looks like, for a good 10 minutes before Del arrived. So they actually saw 2 men breaking in or 1 man breaking in, unless they were watching the van for that entire 10 minutes and then saw Del come later.
That's right. And I guess you could argue that the Lorry Park is not the perfect secluded place because lorry drivers are 24-hour workers and they're coming and going, and the transport cafe is right there. So it's not actually the most private place.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was the next thing I was going to say. Surely the best place would be like in some countryside in the middle of nowhere next to some sort of monument in the middle of the night. That would be the ideal place to go and have a meeting.
Yeah, or just a back alley. I don't know. But that wouldn't have worked for the plot.
If you really didn't want anyone around, that sort of place.
Because lorry parks are 24 hours a day, but not at night.
But I also want to say I really love the way that the cigarette falls out of Denzel's mouth when he hears Del's voice. It's just very funny.
They're very good at that, aren't they? The same with the Del spitting the cigar out in One Door, as One Door closes, the dropping the cigarettes and the cigars and stuff. So good.
Yeah, totally. So that was all I had to say about
Okay, so the sun is rising and we get the sunrise driving shot. We see both Denzel's lorry and the van are passing over the Humber Bridge. So Denzel goes through the toll booth, no problem, and Rodney pulls up and he has to scrape together £1 to get through. So I looked this up. Google Maps says that the drive from Peckham to Hull would be 205 miles and take about 4 hours. So does anybody think that backfiring van can make it all the way up there? And also, would he have had enough petrol? It's pretty lucky he had enough petrol, because if he didn't, he would have had to stop and he would have lost Denzel. But these are all...
Well, like I said, I think he was already way too far behind Denzel. I'll talk about that in the next scene, what the evidence is of how far behind Denzel he was. But I think, obviously it's for the story. He has to have followed Denzel up there. But yes, I don't think the van could make it. And I don't think he would have been able to see where Denzel went. Denzel was too far ahead of him.
And also, did you notice that when you were a kid that whole laughing line is to give the guy the finger? I didn't notice that.
Funny, innit? I'm laughing, look!
I put that down too. I said I love the subtle middle finger Rodney gives to the toll booth guy. But yes, when I was a kid, I did not get that. I just thought he was being sarcastic. But yes, it's to point to his face with the middle finger. Yeah, I didn't notice that either as a kid.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to cut to the Dockside Cafe, unless you had any other notes. So the Dockside Cafe was actually the Neptune Cafe, which was close by to St. Andrew's Docks, where Del rents his boat. And Lil was played by actress Rachel Bell, who had been newly cast in John Sullivan's other show, Dear John. So she actually used to live in Hull, so she was really happy to go back there and film this episode. She said she got to see a lot of her old friends and have a lovely dinner with David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst. So that's nice.
That would be one of the perks of being cast in an episode of Anything Else, is that you got to spend some time with David Jason.
Exactly, yeah, it would have been so nice. So we start the scene by seeing that Denzel is sipping a cup of tea and Lil approaches. She gives us a few important lines here that plants the idea in Denzel's head that he's losing it.
There's no knowing what lack of sleep and overwork does to the brain. I've seen it happen to him, Lovey.
And what happened?
Young fit men went to pieces. Started hearing things and seeing things. You slow down, Lovey, or you'll go the same way.
Then we get a perfectly timed front shot of Denzel starting to eat his meal. As he looks forward, behind him the van crosses the car park and he sees the reflection in the mirror. He shockingly looks behind him and the van is gone. He can't believe his eyes.
So there is our evidence of how far behind Denzel Rodney was, because Denzel has parked the van, got into the cafe, ordered food, the food's been delivered and he's about to start eating it, and Rodney's only just caught up to where he is. So Rodney would have been so far behind Denzel that there's no way he could have followed him to where he was parked.
Yeah, maybe Rodney was parked around the other side and then he decided to move the van.
Now, in this day and age, it would be totally explainable because Del might have Find My on his iPhone and Rodney could have followed that.
Yeah, well, in this day and age, wouldn't he have just called Denzel and be like, Denzel, Del's in the back of your lorry?
Yes, there's so many things that wouldn't happen anymore in old TV shows because of modern technology.
Right. Yeah.
I think there's a YouTube channel somewhere that does that, and they're like ruining old movies with modern technology or something like that.
It's not just funny. Movies, every TV show. So many TV shows where they're like, oh my God, we've got to quickly go and find this person. Like, that wouldn't happen now. Just text them.
Yeah.
An exhausted Rodney climbs out of the van and heads to the lorry. He cranks open the door and we wonder, what's he gonna find? He peers inside and Del emerges from the pile of blankets, staggers out the truck with his 50 grand. I always wondered here why they didn't go and talk to Denzel, but I guess Del tells us that they have to hurry because they got to get the airplane tickets and stuff. So they rush back to the van.
Well, they also don't know where Denzel is, right? Because they're just outside by his lorry and Denzel's not in it. They don't know he's gone in a cafe.
No, but I guess they could have figured that out if they took the time. I mean, Denzel's van is right there and there's nothing else there, so they could have just gone in. But
then if they had done that as well, it wouldn't have worked for the
haunting.
For the Denzel thinking he's going mad because Del is there, because he'd have known Del was there.
Exactly. So they climb into the van and Del says,
"Who the bloody hell am I?"
How?
How? Well, Hallin... What's his name?
Yorkshire, yeah.
What the bloody hell am I doing in Hull?
Well, this is where Denzel brought you, innit? He's most probably got a load to pick up.
As Del sits in the van and Rodney tries to start the engine, Del has a quiet moment of realization.
Boats.
Oh, yeah.
Big boats, little boats.
Yeah, there's red one, white one, look.
As I said, I just love Rodney's sarcasm. He's just so
we get a nice few shots of the harbour here and all the boats. Del reveals his plan here to Rodney.
Slater's got all the airports covered. Why has he got all the airports covered? Because that's how he thinks that we're getting back into the country.
Yeah. But that's how we are getting back in the country.
Not anymore, we ain't. We're going by boat.
Oh, yes, like it. Derek. Yeah, we get a ferry.
Not the ferry, you plonker. The customs there are going to be just as bad as they are at the airports. No, we're going to sail across in our own little boat.
Rodney gives the audience perspective here.
Derek, we'll die.
To be fair, they should have.
Rodney is still very worried as Del tells him he's going to get one with an engine, which is obviously, yeah.
Oh, that's all right then.
I do remember thinking that when I was a kid too, like, how are they going to sail across?
Do you think they were going to do a rowboat with oars?
No, but I just thought that they'll die in the ocean, yeah. You can't just go sailing off.
To be fair, the North Sea, from my understanding of all of those shorts I watch on accidents at sea and boats on giant waves, almost all of them are in the North Sea. Apparently the North Sea is one of the most dangerous oceans in the world to sail in. So for like roughness and weather problems. So yeah, they should have died.
All the filming issues that they had with the seasickness and all that and the long hours at sea and stuff. It's kind of like real, like that they did really struggle and suffer in this sail. So like there's no way that Del, Rodney and Albert would have been just fine sailing across this. And they get delayed and lost. Mm-hmm. And they don't have anything with them, right? They don't have any supplies, any clothes or anything, yeah.
Well, no, that's a question I had later is where do they eat on this whole journey? Because it's not mentioned. They've got a cup of tea at one point, but there's no food mentioned and what they brought on the boat with them.
And I think they just left all that out because it wasn't integral to the plot. But still, yeah, they're worth thinking about, right?
Yeah. So first of all, I had a question about customs for people who sail across on their own little boat. Because they're doing all this to avoid the customs on the ferry and in the airport. But they actually do mention later in the episode that they got through customs fine. So they still have to go through customs on this boat. So surely that focus is like 100% on them. And I would have thought that people who sail across on their own little boat are even more suspicious than people that take the ferry and go via plane. So I'm just wondering if anyone knows anything about that. I personally think this would have made them even more likely to get caught than if they'd have gone through sort of a public route.
Yeah, I don't really understand that because, yeah, like, so when they rent the boat, they're in that little harbour and presumably they just sail straight out that harbour. There's no customs. Do they have to come through customs to go back into the private harbour?
Well, Boise says later they got through
customs
without a problem. So they did have to go through something.
Is that because they followed the Zeebrugge, though, and they went in a different way?
I don't know. I would have thought there would be some sort of system for people, because otherwise that would just be the route that all smugglers took, right? To go on your own little boat and go across and then bring things back in. Like nobody would go the commercial route to do it if that was an option for smugglers.
That's the equivalent of crossing the border of a country and then not going through the customs gate. It's the equivalent. So yes, I don't really understand.
Yeah.
I guess that
But they were going into a harbour. Like they weren't just like pulling up on a random little beach and jumping out. Like they were going in and out of like a port that probably would have customs in place because they had to return the boat. So yeah, I just think that's a bit of a plot point.
I think they
maybe people can tell us about that. If you've ever sailed to Hull on your own, from Hull to Holland on your own little boat, you can tell us what the customs situation is like.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, because I think they just glaze over that later for for ease of storytelling. Yeah.
But yeah, I personally think that would have made it worse going that way. But yeah. And then the other thing I had to ask is, in the days before Google, how did Del know where to go and hire a boat? Because he goes to find that office. I just wonder things like that, because it's such an alien concept to me now, to go to a city without any map, without Google Maps. Like, how do you find things? How did people find things? I mean, I know I was alive in the 80s and stuff, but I was a kid, so it was never my responsibility to use maps and find things. So I just wonder, how did that happen back in the day? Can someone
I don't
tell
know.
us?
He just was at the harbour already, so presumably he just goes to he just walks up and asks the guy, like, where do I rent a boat, or can I rent a boat? So
Maybe. I don't know. I guess it's because people don't ever ask each other things anymore. Everyone just uses their phone to find things. So yeah, alien concept to me. And yes, you're going to talk about Denzel at the crossing now. So I just said it's so funny the way that Denzel sees Del.
This is just cut in here, isn't it? So Del's going to walk to the harbour, and then we get another shot of Denzel leaving the Lorry park, and he sees Del crossing the road. But it's funny the way they have Del just cut behind the guy in the crowd, and Denzel rubs his eyes. And
then Del's gone like right down a side alley, so you can't see him, and the other crowd are going the other way. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's so well done.
And then we cut to the harbour. So Del's arriving at the harbour at St. Andrew's Docks in reality. Del meets the boatman, who was played here by Joe Belcher. And he wants to hire a schooner with an engine.
Schooner with an engine?
Boatman tells him he has just the thing for him. So I looked up, Joe Belcher has lots of credits, but I noticed that he'd been in Open All Hours with David Jason before. And he was also in 10 episodes of Coronation Street, spanning 2 decades, playing 6 different roles.
Oh, right.
So now we get to see Inga for the first time, and the Trotters have a little walkabout on the boat. Rodney is throwing out all the reasons that he thinks this is a terrible idea, and Del is just convinced that it's a perfect idea. The boat was called Inga, and she was a former Anchor Seina netting boat built in the early 1960s. And a recreation of Inga's forecastle was actually built at the Heaton Road studio to film some of the night scenes because the ocean had been so rough. So yeah, that makes sense.
I was going to say the boat's very still in that scene.
Yeah, you can. I don't know if you can tell, but there's definitely, it wasn't all filmed at sea. There's a little cut to the boatman talking to his buddy here, and he explains why he's happy to let his boat out to someone who is obviously inexperienced. And it turns out it's kind of a bit of a northern Del boy here, and he's just assuming he'll never get it back, and it's an insurance write-off.
You'll never see it again. That vessel is worth £10,000. At least that's what it's in the insurance papers.
I actually found that quite ominous, because the way that the camera zooms in on him, it's almost like it's something to do with the overall plot, but it isn't. It's just this guy's one little scheme. It's treated as a very ominous thing because of the way the camera zooms in on him when he says it. It's just a bit strange. I don't know who made that choice to zoom the camera in then.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
Changed the whole tone of what he was saying. But I also would ask the question, would the insurance pay out if you let your boat be rented by people that knew nothing about sailing? Surely that's on you.
They might not have been able to prove that. Yeah. He seems pretty confident.
I would have questioned that if I was an insurance
Seems like he's done
person.
It before, the way he says it. And the other guy's like, oh, yeah, like... It's basically like showing that there are schemes everywhere, right? So this guy's just got a little plan. Rodney actually gets some relief here at the end of the scene when Del tells him,
No, I'm going to get us a skipper. An experienced man to do the sailing.
Who could it possibly be?
Okay, so let's leave it there for today. Join us next week for part 2 of the Christmas special to Hull and Back, where we'll also be doing the awards. Until then... Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookeystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.